How is everybody? Hope you're having a good day. It's raining up here, but I guess it's better than snow and ice, like maybe last week. Let me see if I can find the chat. Takes me a little bit. I see a bunch of you in here. Nice to see you all. Stephen Franklin. Looks like you're first in. Nice to meet you. I don't think we met. Let's see. If you're 60 and on SSDI, does the 24-month wait time for Medicare start on the month you started getting back pay? Not exactly. You got to look at your onset date. When do they find that you were disabled? And assuming that's not 10 years ago. So essentially, we look at 29 months as a general rule, from the time of your onset. That's the 5-month waiting period, and then 24 months of payments. So you could be eligible for Medicare. Looks like you weren't, since you're on it now. But some people are eligible for Medicare the moment they prevail, because that time period has passed since their determined onset date, the established onset date that the SSA decided on. So if you get an easier way to look at it, I suppose, is 24 months of benefits, whether they were in lump sum or you had to go month by month because your onset date was quite recent when you prevailed. That is basically how you're going to figure it out. So whatever your first month of back benefits was, not necessarily when you started to get it, but what it applied to. If you've received 24 months of payments, whether it's retro, maybe part retro, part you had to wait 6 months for the other 6 months, the last 6 months to kick in, that would be when your Medicare would be eligible. And if SSA doesn't contact you, not SSA, Medicare, automatically, I would reach out. If you're hitting up that time, if you are within 2-3 months of that, it wouldn't hurt. You know, if you haven't received anything, sometimes they send you a card in advance. And sometimes it will depend on someone's age, I think, also. But not necessarily. But, you know, some people aren't going to want Medicare because they have creditable coverage through a spouse who's still working. So you don't have to take it, but most people want it. I hope that answered your question, Stephen. Let me know if it didn't. Matthew, hi, Matthew. Can you have the SSA 3368 in front of you this time? Well, I can't do it here because I'm here doing a Q&A. I know last time you said you couldn't answer some of my questions. Yeah. If you have a particular question, why don't you just email it to me, Matthew? I promise one question, and I'll try to get you an answer. But we have a whole playlist. Well, maybe not on the questions you have, but yeah, just send me the one question by email. I don't necessarily, and I can make it, actually what I'll do, Matthew, you give me your list of questions pertaining and be specific, and I will do a video share on them, perhaps. How's that sound? Rather than, sometimes that's easier than me trying to type something up and be precise. I'm better at speaking off the cuff. It's faster and doesn't take up nearly such time, because if I start typing, I get really anal about typos and all that business. It's like I'm still writing contracts and divorce agreements or briefs. So I don't want to have to do that. No offense, but I don't have a lot of spare time. So for the shares like that, but I'll do videos, because that way it can help more people. if they have questions on the 3368. I believe we have I think we have a playlist on 3368. If we don't, maybe we'll start one. Okay, Matthew? Let me know if that is pleasing to you. Okay. And I can do them pretty fast. I could bump out some other things and get them in, all within probably a couple weeks, perhaps, depending on how many there are, of course, because I don't like to put out more than one video a day. Nobody needs to hear me that much. All right. Next. Hi, Jeffrey. Nice to see you from South Texas. Tara Denise. Nice to see you. Thank you, Jeffrey Taylor. He says to like, subscribe, and share. That's so cute. Yeah, members are always good. You get some little perks there, Jeffrey, right? Let's see. Viv. Hi, Viv. Let's share Viv. I had my mental status exam last week on my birthday. Oh, wow. That's a fun birthday, huh? Not. Question. What day is it? 1, it's my birthday. She looked like a deer in the headlights, frantically looking for my birthday. That is too funny. That was clever. That's funny. That's funny, Viv. So I guess she's going to realize that you are not so disoriented that you don't know at least something about what day it is. Well, you probably know the exact date because it is your birthday. So whether or not that's a good thing, though, Viv, it depends. If your part of your case is I am always in such a brain fog, I don't even know what day it is, this probably didn't help you. Although usually do people know their birthday, so hopefully it wouldn't hurt you too much in that regard. LC, hi LC. How long does recon phase take compared to initial phase? Is it true that recon has like 15% low success percentage compared to judge hearing? Next step. Okay, so how long does recon take compared to initial phase? Historically, I always felt like it took the same or slightly less. I'd say slightly less because it's already kind of in a mojo mode. They already have a ton of evidence. They're reconsidering that, but they're also spending the time to order any new visit records that you said in your appeal that you've done since you applied. So the people that decide to blow that part off when they appeal, if they appeal pro se and they don't put any new doctors down, their recons are going to go really fast. And it's certainly going to be a rubber stamp unless there was some major glitch as to why they were denied an initial. Like they're actually a listing and it was clear and someone hit the wrong button, but otherwise, not providing that stuff makes for a quick recon, and it's going to be, I would say, undoubtedly a denial, a rubber stamp denial. If you do put in all your new stuff and everything that comes up after you appeal, you add that too, like you contact the adjudicator, you let them know, that obviously can add time to it because there's more evidence for them to consider. So it's really evidence in your favor, assuming your medical evidence isn't saying that you're improving drastically compared to 3 months ago. So sometimes the duration or the length of time is not the question really to be asking if it's being used in a way that strengthens your case. Now, currently, as you all probably know, over the last year or two, initial and recon are excessively slow. There is staff shortage. There was major people quitting over the last few years. I know there was a big article. I forget if it was Dallas or Houston or someplace I thought in Texas. The article was about, and this is a good year ago now, about how they lost 60% of their adjudicators, if I recall. And if I can find it, maybe I'll post it up here after the fact, due to quitting. It was that big resignation. People after, getting a few months off of COVID didn't really want to go back to work, whatever. Maybe they were independently wealthy and didn't have to. But, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's not an easy job, particularly if you're not super well staffed to begin with. The burden on the adjudicators is, I don't envy them at all. For the ones that work really hard, I try to do everything. Well, I try to do it anyway to help them. I gather evidence with them on initial recon. I kind of stay on top of it because we have access now, the representatives, at least the ones that are registered with the SSA that do this a lot, to seeing the actual medical file that exists in the SSA's possession in the adjudicator's possession. So we can know what they have, what they don't have, what they're trying to get, what they might need help with. Sometimes they're better at getting something versus, a patient's or claimant's personal version of the 827 going out to get them separately. So it all really depends. It's just kind of like a pivot as you need to go type of thing. So you have to kind of always be paying attention. But that can help Recon go faster. I think I did see when you say the percentage of 15%, I think on a waterfall chart I saw a few years ago. I should probably get an updated one. But honestly, I do work up on all of my cases the same, like in terms of no stone unturned. So it almost doesn't matter to me what the percentage is generally, because I think the 15% Recon rate is generally, that's everybody, including those that don't do squat on Recon and those that do. So those that do might have a 40-50% Recon award rate. Then you got the ones that don't do squat, and they might have a 2% Recon turnover rate. And somewhere in the middle is the 15%. That's an average. So, I think we always have to consider that the numbers they give are the average. That means there's some kinds of workups are going to produce much better results on Recon than the other ones that don't do anything. I think it just makes a big difference. But as an overall rate, I did hear that. I did read that, I should say. Now the judge hearing at the next step, that always seems there. I mean, the judges' award rates, while they dropped precipitously, I thought after like 2010 or so, based on some unofficial steerings of how they should decide things. It's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, every judge is different. I don't go and look up judges. I did this when I was younger in the field. I would look up the judge that I was going to have my client in front of, and to me that was just not a wise thing to do. I think sometimes people see a low rated judge and they give up, or they don't work as hard because they think it's fruitless. I think that's wrong. I think that's kind of malpractice. You have to give full hilt as an attorney anyway to every single case. And also, and this is just from anecdotal, like listening in to some colleagues at times, when someone sees a really high winning judge rate, they might sit back and not feel the need to do the brief or get those last updates or, encourage their client to get that updated MRI that they haven't had an update in 3 years. And I just think looking at the judges' rates is inviting one to reduce their efforts, whether it's good or bad, right? If the judge is a low awarding judge versus a higher awarding judge, it's just a human condition, I think, and I don't think it happens to all representatives. Some have a really strict policy like we do, but I can't speak for the ones that don't. So I don't know. But yeah, those percentages you mentioned are probably so. I know there's a big discussion now about eliminating reconsideration. I'm probably in the minority that I'm not in favor of it, maybe because we win so much on Recon, because we use the time. I'll get a case where a person I know they're disabled because I know how to inquire and ask the right questions when we have our interview. But so I know, and it's like an innate kind of thing. But I might also know that they have a losing case right now, and without proper workup, which is a joint effort between me and them, that they will lose. But they have a winning case if they just get the proper advice and follow it. So I take those cases when I have a express confirmation from the person that they will follow the advice, because I don't feel like wasting my time. There are plenty of people who want to follow, but want advice, want to follow it, and want to prevail. So it kind of makes a difference. So I get an express, yes, I'll follow all the advice. And that's, of course, assuming they're not living under a bridge without a car, then there's going to be difficulties. And we take those too. But the amount of cases like that, where if they sometimes even before we file, pardon me, it's a dog hair in my keyboard, I'll start giving them advice like, you need to start setting up these appointments now. You have Medicaid, so go to, or private, or through a spouse, go to that ortho because you're talking about a bad back. Your PCP is not enough. Get some MRIs. You haven't had an MRI in 10 years. Set these things up now, because it takes a while for those appointments to come to fruition. There's long waits. Medical profession is not really, or the industry, I should say, is not really where we'd like it to see it. But if they start setting up the appointments now, in 6 months, they will have them already completed, and maybe they'll be going to PT now because it was recommended. All these little things can start flowing, and now you've got evidence. So it might not be enough for initial, but it keeps going, and you'd be surprised how much it can flip. It's particularly for the over 50 crowd. The under 50 crowd, you guys, you're in a whole different ball game, and it's really difficult. But the same principles apply. You're just not going to maybe see the same overall numbers of success, but we see them all the time. This year has been the year of under 50 people for me, largely because of this channel, people pitching in, becoming members and all that kind of business. But that's where this is all going to, under 50s and some other of those 1%er cases, or, the ones that are going to have difficulty getting representation despite being what I believe to be disabled. So, but that is how a lot of times that recon really helps, and they never have to go to hearing. And nowadays, this last several months, with maybe since, I don't know, it started maybe last year, the ALJ waits, once you appeal for ALJ hearing, are very lengthy. They're getting longer. They had been shortened up around 2019, heading into COVID. I had a 4 or 5 month wait, that's considered really short, because prior to that, it had been 2 years after you appealed for hearing. It was so bad. It's not that bad now, but it's getting worse again. So hopefully that's going to be changing soon. But to me, generally speaking, I prefer recon. And I was in a state, Pennsylvania, no recon. New Jersey, recon, and a bunch of other states. There was 10 states that they did a beta thing where there was no recon for almost 20 years. It ended a few years ago because they found that it didn't actually save notable time for claimants. I think it was like 2 months or less in the duration. And it didn't produce better results either. So they decided to add it back in. Does it cost more money? I suspect it might. But if it's for the purpose of helping claimants get deserved awards faster, I don't know how we can say it's not a good idea. Now, the one thing, and I was just talking with a colleague about this on a network we're in yesterday, I think it was. I would like to, since they are considering getting rid of recon, the recon stage, and I'm not in favor of it, and I'm probably in the minority, but again, the minority of us probably actually work on our cases during recon and initial, as opposed to letting them sit and hope for the denial. To maybe age the case. I wouldn't mind seeing, and I'm sorry I'm going so long on this question, guys. I wouldn't mind seeing recon be optional for a claimant, because there are some cases, particularly young people, where I know if I have a young person who has terrific evidence, terrific, there's nothing wrong with the evidence, and it's just continuing in that vein. Recon, being that it is often a rubber stamp, and I feel like it's like a checkbox thing, and if you don't fit into the little nooks and crannies, you're going to be denied if you're under 50. The recon can be perhaps wasteful, and you would only win at a hearing anyway, because ALJs have discretion. They're allowed to think outside the box and use their brains a little bit more. So in those, that's an example of what case I might say, yeah, let's just bump right to a judge. But for the ones that extra time for them to get up to speed with recommended legal advice related to their medical evidence, I think is invaluable. It also makes your case stronger for ALJ. So let's say you go from initial right to ALJ, but you needed that time to develop the evidence. you now don't have that additional 6 months or 4 months to develop that evidence. You're jumping right into ALJ. And when ALJ hearings were coming really fast, they had no time to follow up and get, an MRI could take you 6 months to get it approved and scheduled. They would lose that opportunity, and they had a bigger chance, in my opinion, of losing at ALJ. The Recon can also be beneficial in that it makes it super strong for the ALJ. Improves the chance of an OTR. Not that OTRs are very common. I wouldn't hang my head on an OTR at all. But it can improve chances all the way around the board. So I know that's a lot of information on that topic, but that whole thing about Recon is coming up right now, and SSA is considering getting rid of it altogether. Again, I don't agree with it, but I'm just one little voice. Okay. Moving along. Oops. Doing the little scroll here. M. Williams, thank you. Good afternoon to you too. You're welcome, Matthew. I'll look out for you, okay? When I see that come in. George Graham, thank you so much. You're very kind. Steve Franklin again. All right, I'm going to pop you up, Steve, but I'm not sure if I'm going to remember all the details we just talked about. My onset date was January of 23. Okay, you did win already. That's right. You're on ssdi. And was back paid from August of 23. Okay. I assume that's because your filing date maybe was August of 24, Stephen? Is that right? About August of 24, did you apply and they paid you back the 1 year because I can't go any deeper than that? So back paid from, yeah, I would think August of 2025 would be about where it is. Good with the math there, Stephen. Okay. Scopo 80. Say your onset date was 12 months and their time you were waiting to get, I don't understand that your onset date was 12 months. You mean 12 months ago? And your time you were waiting to get ssdi after filing and getting approved after 24 months. Do you get the onset money and the waiting period money over 19 months total? I'm not really sure of your dates here. Whatever your date of application was, Scopo, that's with dollar, by the way, not an S, but I'm going to say Scopo. Whatever your, and we're talking ssdi, right? Whatever your application date was, whatever you were disabled before then, as per the SSA's finding, that will be back benefits unless it is taken up by the mandatory 5-month waiting period. Okay. And never more than 12 months before the date of application. So you kind of have to do that do a little diagram. So they can, if someone is approved 3 years after applying, but they were approved, their onset date that the SSA found was 2 years before they applied, which is great. I mean, that they went back. They're 5 months, the 2 years before the application date are not going to be paid in full because only 12 months can be. And the full 12 months beforehand will be if there's another 5 months that is unpaid in that time period, which in that case that I just described would be. I know it gets a little complicated when I'm talking in hypotheticals here, but I hope that helped. You don't get waiting period money. Remember, that's an unpaid 5 months. I think I see what you're saying there. 24 months. If your time period is 24 months, yes, 5 of those months will be unpaid if that's when that falls in. So you have to look at when they fall in. I literally, that's why I always have a scratch pad. I'm always like, oh, when was it? And I make a little timeline so I can get to the right answer when I'm dealing with, one of my clients or a consult or something. So Matthew, the email you can send it to is either one. It could be contact@joydisability.com or stephaniejoy@joydisability.com. Liz or someone else might respond to you if I'm in the middle of stuff, but usually that's because they're trying to not let you think you're being ignored. Okay. But either one, contact is easier to remember probably and spell. disability.com. I'll tell you something. I should have done a different thing when I started the practice many years ago, because that's kind of lengthy. And it's very easy to mistype I's and L's and T's, particularly when it's really small. Frederick. Hi, Frederick. I got approved for paranoid schizophrenia, anxiety disorder, social anxiety, PTSD, brain damage, and neuropathy. Wow, Frederick, you got a lot going on. I'm sorry about that. He's saying, don't give up, everybody. A documented trail is a must. Just go to the doctor if you are mental. Good advice, Frederick. I can't agree more. And hopefully that medical treatment actually helps. You know, it doesn't always, and some people refuse to go because they find that it doesn't, but then you're also hurting your case. And if food on the table is needed from the case, you know what I mean? Like, so sometimes you just have to, there's two reasons, right? Two bases to get medical treatment. If you have an SSD case, you need it to win it. And of course, if you want proper treatment for your conditions, that's probably what it's going to take too. I know a lot of people refrain. I have clients that have done this. They stopped going because it wasn't working. And I'm like, okay, but if you're going to have a case, you have to, or else there's no point in me being here. I can't help you. You know, evidence is our ammunition. That's how we fight the case. So, Justin, nice to see you again. You're still waiting for a hearing date and a judge. Yeah, it's kind of lengthy right now, pal, for sure. Thanks for being here, though. I appreciate it. Lionel Mandrake. Oh, thank you, Lionel. Frederick says, this channel helped me when I was OCD in my mind. Oh, well, I'm glad. I'm glad it helps some people anyway, right? Can't help everybody, but. Andre, is it true that thousands upon thousands of people die while waiting for their benefits? I don't know the numbers, Andre. I don't know if it's published or not. I've had my handful. I just had a mention of that someplace, I feel like this week. But oh yeah, it was I did a video on a recent court ruling, a circuit court case. It might be coming out this week. I don't know. But yeah, that's devastating. I've had my share, not a lot, thankfully. So it makes me think it's not so many, but I bet you it certainly is thousands of people, because if I have a handful and I don't have nearly all the people in the country, and it's so sad because you get to know your client and they're trying to survive, and something's taken them out. And sometimes it's young people, due to their conditions. And I have had some that OD'd, and they didn't start out as, people with substance abuse disorders. So it's really sad. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's thousands upon thousands, Andre. I just don't know if those numbers are published or not. You would think SSA could come to those numbers, though, because they get reports of deaths. Granted, we know that's in flux right now. But a lot of times if someone is claiming and they pass away during a claim, I know with our clients, we continue to the claim. We get a substituted party in, usually a family member, and they can stand in for the claimant who's now deceased. So it's not like those things the numbers are there. It's just that no one's maybe putting them together, or maybe they don't want to share them because it doesn't reflect well on maybe SSA speed and competence. Okay. Smith Hart Family. Oh, a family. Do you think that the government cuts for SSA staff will heavily impact the SSI and SSDI claim processes for applicants? Okay. And I don't really want to get into the politics, guys. Those of you who know me probably know where I stand. Everything we are hearing officially versus clickbait stuff and inflammatory media outlets that give you a funky title and then there's no meat to it. From everything they're saying, including some of the major organizations that are in Washington, and they stand for claimants representatives, and claimants as a byproduct thereof. Apparently, it is, first of all, it's probably the least affected federal agency. The SSA is a more privileged agency because it deals with the general public like this, I believe, and vulnerable people, disabled and elderly. So that has been expressed already, that it is, and even in some of the pundit news articles, it's been acknowledged. So, there was false news about 50%. No, it turns out it's about 12%. And apparently it's not coming from public facing areas of mission critical areas. That would be taking in applications at the field offices. That would be, I think, the initial and reconsideration stages. Those are the areas that are mission critical. The mission critical is what is actually getting claimants approved or disapproved if they're supposed to be disapproved, or beneficiaries, keeping them in status, getting them paid, changing their address, like all that really important stuff that affects the very people the whole program is designed to help. Those are the areas that are not apparently going to be touched. In fact, they want to take the areas that are foo-foo gravy and don't have anything to do with helping claimants or beneficiaries. They're really more of like publicity stunt areas. They're trying to take those people and either you're gone if you're not going to do a job that's mission critical, or, they would slide them over to another area if they have the aptitude to do it. Customer service, I think it does take an aptitude. You have to be patient. You have to understand the people you're speaking with and their difficulties so that you have patience when you might be having an otherwise bad day. So customer service is a skill in and of itself, I think, if you're going to do it well. It doesn't take a skill if you're going to do it crappy. But that is everything we're hearing from the SSA, from the national organizations who have been speaking with the SSA and looking at the plans. So you can take it or leave it. You can disbelieve what they say, believe what they say. If you're aware of what the goal is, it's certainly to make it a better program and work better for all you guys. And it would be nice if it made it a little better for us too. But it's almost like if it's better for one, it's better for all. So I know it's a rough go and it's scary, but it was a failing system thus far. The news has been out there for years how bad it has been. So we either continue to fail and crumble and fall, and a lot of people get hurt, or we fix it. Okay, end of that. Lionel, how are you? Lionel Mandrake. All right, it sounds like he didn't know that the SSA didn't have all of his records when he was denied. Lionel, I think I've talked about this before, and nobody said anything to the contrary, so I don't think it's changed yet. Claimants can't see, I don't believe yet, so any of you know differently, like if this changes anytime soon, please let me know. I totally support them changing this unless I hear a good reason why they shouldn't. A claimant who is pro se, I believe, should be able to see the file that we see as representatives when we have a claimant. So he knows what the SSA has received, what the adjudicator has access to. He could see what the adjudicator has requested and that his doctors have been ignoring and not providing the records. And then he can hop on the horn and make a phone call. They ask him to do that anyway. Letters go out saying, hey, we've been unable to get this. Can you contact your provider and get it? So I'd like to see claimants have access. Now, maybe not if they have, maybe only one person has access. So if there's a representative, then they don't have access because the representative gets the access because you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen, shall we say. And that could be very disruptive to the assistance. And I could see that being the case. There could be duplicative records sent in. Something I've already addressed with an adjudicator. Now the client is all hyped up about when we got it covered. And I don't want to be spending any more time wasteful discussing it. Let me just do my job. But for those that don't have representatives, if you would have access to that, Lionel, you would have known that they didn't get all your records. And if you have an adjudicator who doesn't reach out to you to tell you, and I think that's very frequent now, Maybe because they're so crushed and overburdened because that big resignation and then the hiring freeze of a couple of years ago, the hiring freeze is being continued while this whole shakeup, if you will, goes on. Obviously, eventually it's not going to, the hiring freeze is going to stop. But for now, that's what we're dealing with. If you had access like we do now, and by the way, guys, we did not have this access until 2020 at the initial recon levels. So we were out in left field also. It was very frustrating. And then it's funny. It was like in the end of 2020, fall, maybe October, boom, we get this access. And it was game changing. Now, we only get access to the medical file and the e-file. So it would be better if we had access to A, B, and D sections. And we've been fighting for that with our national organizations. And hopefully that will take place too. But for now, definitely the most important is the F file. And the E file is important too, like function reports. What's in there? What did the client set in before I came in? I got to see what a damaging job he may have done. But at least if we know, we have potentially capacities to mitigate. Phantom. What's next after SSI, that would be SSA, sends you a letter reconfirming everything that was answered in a phone interview? I was asked to sign to document and mail it back. You have to. But if you see any errors in there, I would correct it and initial it when you send it back. If there's something inaccurate that they said, you said, you said SSI I think you meant SSA because SSI is not the entity, right? It's just a program. You think you're talking about the administration sent you a letter. Was it an SSI case though? That's when they asked you a bunch of financial things, living arrangements and all that. And you want to make sure all those answers are correct. Yeah, because that's going to affect whether you're eligible at all for SSI and or if you are you subject to an offset? So you don't get the full kit and caboodle each month. You're going to get something less because it has to be reduced because living arrangements or what have you. Okay. So, but you do have to send it back because that's like an attestation that, yes, I have this. I did this application and those are my answers. And without it, they might not continue with your claim. So, and they probably put that right in the letter. So read it and take heed of that one. That's an important one. And when you mail it back, Phantom, I would do it with tracking, whether that's certified mail, return receipt requested by the post office, and hopefully they're going to be reliable, or UPS FedEx. I know it costs money, but you need to know they got it. You want to have the proof, because if they say they never got it and you can't prove they did, when you apply again and you say, but you need to go back to my old application, they'll say, prove that you even got it fully in. And you can say yes. And we do this all the time. And because it's not rare for them to lose something. It falls through the cracks. Maybe it's a computer glitch. I don't know. And we fight for that old application date. Because remember, with SSI, you're never going to get benefits from before your application date. So you want that earlier one. And SSD, depending on that, the retro period of 12 months that you could get and how old your onset date is, you might want it going back too, particularly if someone delayed in filing. So, Diane Maunsell. Am I saying that right? Maunsell? Is that French? If a custodial parent is disabled with being deaf and they receive SSD, do their children also receive SS? If they do, how would this affect any child support from non-custodial parent reside in Ohio? I'm not going to be able to comment on Ohio matrimonial law or child support law. So I can't do that. I'm not an Ohio attorney. So, and even if I'm a New Jersey attorney, but I'm not going to comment on New Jersey child support rules of today or divorce laws, because the years I practiced divorce law in New Jersey, it's over 20 years ago. So hopefully, the laws were so bad then, I hope they've gotten better, but somehow I doubt it. But I can say this. Yes, if the custodial parent, if the child is getting benefits, the child should get, if it's a minor child or a disabled child that was disabled under the age of 22, a DAC child, they should be getting auxiliary benefits from the disabled, deaf, custodial parent. So that's one thing. And if the child does, would this affect any child support? I'm not sure, because if the non-custodial parent had SSD, that part was going to the child. Yes, that non-custodial parent's going to get a little credit from whatever his appropriate child support payment is based on his disabled income versus maybe he used to make a ton of money before he became disabled. There's a change in circumstances there. It's that people, it would behoove them, if their income is severely reduced because they're on SSD, to go and get there if they're paying child support that was based on $200,000 income. You're going to want to get that adjusted because now you don't have $200,000 income. And assuming you don't have like millions of assets, the custodial parent, however, is, I don't think, I'm going to say this as a speculation, Diane, I don't think the non-custodial parent can get credit reducing his or her child support because the custodial parent's paying child support through those auxiliary benefits that he or she is providing to the child, that he or she worked for. That's how they got those auxiliary benefits for the child, is all through their work record that got them the SSD. So speculatively, I want to say, I don't think the non-custodial parent is going to be able to get a reduction because that kid now has monies from disabled custodial parents, bad misfortune of becoming disabled. I don't think so. If a state does that, I think it's ludicrous. But if you find out, Diane, let me know. It would, it's outside my pay lane, but I'm always curious about the effects of divorce in the various 50 states. And that's the thing, they're all very different. So that's why I'm not about to go there. Okay. Matthew, I don't know what those questions are, so I'm going to skip on down that. New journey. Oops. Oh. It really bothers me to know that. To know what? Oh, ugly truth. Thank you. Good afternoon, you too. Because I'm 40, not yet 50, that despite my severe disabilities, I will likely be denied. But you got to remember, New Journey, some people under 40 are not likely to be denied. So, and they prevail. It's just the legal rules that apply to them are more different. They don't get the presumption that they have difficulties adjusting to other work based on age. You could have difficulties adjusting to other work based on mental health problems. So there's, ways to defeat it, but you don't have the grid applications, which we like. And ironically, some people are trying to get rid of those. Yeah, that's not good. That is such an important provisions. New Journey saying that he tried so hard for the last 10 years to find a job and keep a job, but I couldn't. That just brings me up the point, guys. Some people are like, I can't keep a job more than 2 years. I can't keep a job more than 1 year. I'm disabled. That's not disabled under SS rules because that's sustained basis. A lot of people who aren't disabled can't keep a job more than a year. It's keeping you fed. So the mere fact of losing the job is not really defining. Now, that's not to say a history of getting let go a lot or having to leave because it's too arduous. And those things will show up on some of the reports that the SSA prints before. They don't give us access. It's one of the things they don't give us access to until hearing, which is very annoying. And I think that should change. There's zero reason. It can be very helpful. It's just full transparency, really. And I'm game on with that. But the job change up can be one of those crumbs of evidence to show that things they were painful, or they were, if it was mental, that there was like a getting terminated due to, interactions with other coworkers or the public, or absenteeism because of medical problems. So while it would still be SGA and you can't say you were disabled then, it's the evidence of that growing impairment and how much it really prevented longer term work, which can show about the disability itself, the impairments. So that can be helpful in another roundabout way. Okay. Don't give up because you're under 50. Your journey. If you can, if you're far from 50 and you're going to run out of your insured status because you haven't worked in a few years, then that DLI, date last insured, is breathing down your neck. Those little part-time jobs or full-time jobs, either one, that you do each calendar year and earn at least, say, $8,000, that's going to keep you insured perpetually. It doesn't interfere with proving that you're disabled, if you're disabled medically, because it's under SGA. Or it could be failed work attempts, a whole nother topic. We have playlists on that. But that will keep you insured so that if you're struggling now, when you turn 50 and you get those other rules, maybe that would be the changing point. And you could still get Social Security and not SSI because you did all those little tiny jobs. You kept going for it and making that money, even though it's not a lot, but it's some, and it bought the credits. And you don't need a lot of income, guys, that you're taxed on to get the credits. Like it's still under $8,000 for the whole entire year to get all four. So I always encourage people to consider doing that, because then they won't be relegated to SSI if and when they can prove they're disabled. Can you imagine turning 50? You now meet the rules for over 50 disabled, but now you don't have Social Security insured status, and you're relegated to SSI. SSI is a saving grace. However, it doesn't, in my opinion, except in an extremely rare situation, would it be better than Social Security disability for a multitude of reasons. There's a benefit of Medicaid. Some people are like, yeah, but I get Medicaid and I don't have to pay for Medicare. Yeah. Okay. That's true. But there's a bunch of other reasons. So, new journey. I've been a burden on my parents because they have to pay for all of my expenses, and here SSI will likely be denied. Are you SSI only, new journey, or are you SSD? Well, you just heard what I said about potential changes to SSD. Don't give up. And if you can keep those part-time jobs like, you were maybe doing short version of full-time. Maybe if you can do part-time, it can be more durational. And if you keep it under SGA, it still can be indicative of disability at that time. So, and once you turn 50, just because it doesn't mean you can't win at 40. Okay. I say never give up. You have to persevere, keep your chin up. And, we see under 50s win all the time. It's just that you have a much harder burden. And I think there is going to be a far greater percentage of people that are denied. But that doesn't mean that has to be you. It really is fact specific to your case and what you're doing for treatment and all that. And, you're fortunate you have family. That's what family's all about. It's so super important. Hang in there. All right. So Matthew's asking, do you ever make exceptions if all your spots are taken to represent people under 50? As Matthew knows, there's a cap in every category. And the under 50 is always full because there's so many people under 50 and not enough practitioners who will accept these cases because of the perceived, it's truthful, but perceived likelihood of denial. We do take them, but obviously they're going to have a higher denial rate, even though when we take them, we have probably a very high award rate relative to the normal, because we're not going to work on it unless we think we have a chance. So there's just, Matthew, I know it doesn't make me feel great that there has to be this cap. It's just that we have to keep our door open. And, I could take, X amount of under 50 cases that take 3 times as much work, or 5 times, or 10 times, and more years. And then I can't do the other cases. And I also then can't keep the doors open, right? I can't pay my staff. I can't, so that's why we have to have these caps on the number of the harder cases and more likely to be denied. It's just a matter of math and keeping the lights on. I don't really want to go get a job for someone else for a salary, so I have to make, fiscal, I have to consider fiscals, when I make these decisions. But it does happen, it does happen, there, veterans are one. But then again, it has to do with everything though. Like they have to have the most bang up treatment. I had a young person not long ago who it was going to be kind of next on the, we haven't, someone just sold at the door and we could take another. And I was going to take this person, but he was not going to be willing to do certain medical evidence development, which had to do with treatment that was needed. I was taking him for a reason I'm not going to discuss, but it was warm and dear to my heart, but he wasn't going to be able to follow the criteria that I would lay out for him. So, and it was a choice. He wasn't going to do it by choice. So I said, well, if you change your mind, come on back. But I don't know. It's not like I'm leaving the spot open for him. You know what I'm saying? But Matthew, maybe you're having a problem getting a representative because of your age. I know you thought you had some that were willing. I don't know if they misrepresented to you or what have you, but, just don't give up. And I'm sure we'll be talking in the future, Matthew. It's just right now, it's not possible. RX topic. Hello, Stephanie. Will my Medicare benefits be terminated if my disability benefits get cut off on a CDR? Oh gosh. Okay. I would have to refresh on this, RX, before and I know you can probably hear the dogs, guys. I couldn't find my headphones to drown out that sound. So I don't know if you can hear the dogs acting like arses. Probably the UPS man's here. But, no, well, actually, RX, you said you're 65. You're eligible for Medicare at 65. So you won't be cut off. You would just be on it as a 65-year-old automatically. So you're safe. But for other people, they get cut off on a CDR. There is an end to Medicare, but then there is an exception where people get a much longer one. And that might be if they're ceased due to earnings and not from medical improvement. And I'm not totally up on that because, again, I don't represent those people. So my follow-up and staying on top of it is not my top priority, but it is something to look at, guys, if you're in that boat. But RX, you should be fine. You're 65. You have a totally other basis for, collecting Medicare. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to go knock some heads, unless they shut up. Give me 1 second. And I don't even know how to do this. Hold on. Oh my. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate. I told you to be quick. They're good guard dogs, but whew. All right. I usually have my little amazing headphones and I just charged them and now I'm like, they're like not where I thought they were. So normally I would have them on. You can't even really see them. They're the kind that go back here. Oh, they're amazing. First headphones ever I could use because I can't really use those ear thingies. They won't stay in my ears and they don't feel good. Okay. Mary Moore, nice to see you. How long can you work on SSDI without losing your benefits? Mary, you can work forever on SSDI without losing your benefits if your work is not SGA and is not indicative of you having improved enough to go back to work full time. Okay. Does that answer the question? A lot of people work forever on SSDI. Okay, Angie, I don't know if you were here before when I answered this question. But just to get to it again, she asked, how can the job cuts / budget cuts not hurt Social Security? First, Social Security is one of the protected areas that they're not removing much, and they're not removing any, apparently, of the numbers from those that actually work on Social Security. That would be all your claimant-related workers, beneficiaries, people that are addressing beneficiary needs, claimant needs. This has come right down from the SSA, and the national organizations have repeated it, that this is what they, in fact, have been advised of as well. It's been publicly out there. It might not be, depending on what your media source is, it might not be represented to you. But if you go directly to the source, that's what you're going to see. If you think they're lying, I can't address that. Everyone can think whatever they want. This is what's being said. That there is supposed to be movement from the non-Social Security related units that are there for other reasons, maybe cooking classes or something, that those people are being offered the job to come and do customer service and help claimants and beneficiaries in those units that are, they call them mission critical. So that's where I think they're going to try to, it's suggestive that that's where they're going to try to bolster the numbers that are so low, that have been low since 2 years ago when the last administration decided to do the hiring freeze. And I'm not even saying they had a choice. I mean, Congress perhaps didn't provide enough money for hirings, right? So we'll see where it goes. But apparently the goal is get rid of the fluff that does nothing for the people, the claimants and the beneficiaries, and use that money to later hire into those critical areas or move the people. I know they're offering the opportunity to go into those areas. Some, as I was saying before, customer service is hard. So some people might take it and some people will be like, oh, heck no, I liked my cushy little job in the, designing recipes for I don't know who. But, and I'm being facetious there, but, some of the units were just ridiculous, when they're starving mission critical areas for claimants and beneficiaries and spending money for these other areas that do nothing for the claimants and beneficiaries. So that's what I think about that. We shall see, though, right? We shall see. And it stands to reason, and it stands to logic, and it stands to all the goals we've heard about for years. So I'm hopeful. Is it painful right now? Yes, but it's been extremely painful for a few years now. And some would say for decades, and I would agree, but extremely painful the last 2 or 3 years. Extremely painful. I could say that from a representative point of view when our checks aren't cut. And, we were bleeding representatives, particularly lawyers, because they couldn't, particularly newer ones that aren't as well established with a pipeline, because they couldn't even get their feet planted, because you can't feed your kids when you don't get paid, because the SSA is not making any of that a priority, or the cases go on for 3 years. So it's been a long, painful place we've been at due to incompetent management, I suppose. That doesn't mean everyone has been incompetent, but, it takes a really cohesive and durational, administration to make it all work. So I don't know. We'll see, Angie. We'll see. But I hope that explains about how it can't hurt it any further if they're planning on doing what they've been saying they're going to do. Mary. Okay, please explain to us on disability what they mean. You can work 9 months, make as much money you want, and still have your SSDI benefits. And what happened after 9 months? you're talking about the trial work period. Trial work period is 9 months, whether they are all together or sporadic, as long as they fit within a 5-year period from the first one to the last one. Those will be in the trial work period. Now, if while you're in the trial work period, Mary, the SSA will not look at the work you're doing, and you can be making $10,000 a month. It's because you're trying it. You're trying to work and make a lot of money to see if you can get off of SSD. That's the whole point. So they cannot use what the work you're doing or the income you're earning to CDR you out of there. Once you hit your 9th month, the very next month, you are in something called the extended period of eligibility. That lasts, well, and it's a period of time. There's a 3-year period of time that any month that you continue to make, not just over the TWP, which is lower than SGA, but if you make over SGA, so if you're still going balls to the wall, making $10,000 a month, the first month you do it, you have to pay back the benefit they paid you. You weren't owed it. Any month in that 3-year period that you make over the SGA, because you're in your extended period of eligibility and you're not in your trial work period, you will owe that money back. You will have an overpayment. People, and in time, that will also be looked at as, okay, is she able to work? Is she medically improved? Number one, does her work now show that she could work full time? And they can cease you on that basis while you're in your extended period of eligibility. Now, if you are in your extended period of eligibility and occasionally you work over SGA and you have to pay that money back, so you get these little minimal overpayments, but you're still in there. When that 3-year period is over, the very first time you earn SGA, you are ceased. You're done. So it's really important, I think, to just be mindful of the rules. They are not hard to follow if you make a point to follow them. But that 9-month period is like it's exactly what it says, a trial work period. Let me try to work as hard as I can, full-time. It could be full-time, part-time. The trial work period amount is, very low. It's like 1,100 and something, whereas SGA is 1,620. But so anything over that 1,100 something is going to be a trial work period month. And once you hit 9 in that rolling 5-year period, you are now thrust into your extended period of eligibility, which you weren't in before. So we do have playlists on this. I think I have TWP trial work period playlist. Might even have EPE extended period of eligibility playlist. That one might be really small, but just where it's explained again as well. So hope that helps. Dwayne Price. All right, we're an hour in, guys. I've heard stories of bad CE doctors, but I had my exam Monday and my CE doctor was very thorough and thoughtful and told me she would write up a very good report, and I got my knees and x-rays fine. Well, awesome, Dwayne. Yeah, that happens. They are not all horror shows. Plenty of them are, but not all of them. So I am very, very glad to hear you had a good experience. That's what we like to see. There are times when we get the CE report and it wins our case, or I should say it helps to win the case because they were already thinking the case was winnable on the treatment records that we were able to argue on, but they just want to make sure with one of their people. And so it's just almost like a formality. And those are blessings right there. So I hope that's your result, Dwayne. Fingers crossed for you, bud. Amanda, how much can you make during the Ticket to Work program? Just like all the other rules, I believe there, Armando. I don't really get into the Ticket to Work program. I know I was supposed to plan on doing a piece on it. I haven't gotten to it yet. Again, it's not something that is involved in our practice because we represent people trying to get on SSD, not the people already in it. But I think you still have to worry about all the same monetary rules. So study up on your TWP and your SGA. And there are all the time, SSA puts out webinars on this. Do you guys see them? I get the emails about them. They're free. And if you're interested in a Ticket to Work program, which, by the way, Ticket to Work program, Armando, is that Armando? Yeah, Armando. My impression is that is for when you are trying to get off of Social Security disability. You're not trying to, you don't think that you necessarily will be disabled like this for long and that you might be trainable for full-time work and you can get off. So if that's not your plan, I don't know what the benefit of Ticket to Work would be. It's good for many people who that is their plan. But if it's not, their work for you is to get you to be full-time and working over SGA, because then you're not disabled. And that's not to trick somebody. It's to help them go back to a normalcy without having to be on benefits if they don't want. So, people say it's a trick. I'm like, it's not a trick, but people have different goals. I have plenty of clients whose goal is they needed and wanted to collect the SSD because they were not able to work, and for whatever reason and for whatever duration, but their plan was to get out there and get off of it. People just have different, goals. So Ticket to Work program can be helpful for that, but I would say it's the minority of people I know and have represented that is a workable thing to do. I'd like to say it isn't. I'd like to see more. Sometimes the entrepreneurs are the ones that can get off of SSD successfully because they're not really subject to the strictures of an employer. They can make their own flexible hours. It's just different, but it's still the minority of people, A, that feel well enough to do it, and B, would be making over SGA. If you're under SGA, it's not really an issue. You can do that as long as you're still, following up your treatment, you're still provably disabled and all that. Virginia, oh, thank you. You're doing a good job giving tips on SSA with your Q&A 11. Oh, that's really sweet. Oh, Virginia, that is so kind of you to say. Kind words. Valerie Woodson. Hi, Valerie. Hello. Not sure how to check if and when back pay after approval. So I'm thinking you got an approval letter February 3rd. I don't know if that was a judge's written decision, Valerie, or if that was on initial or recon, you got an approval. Sounds like the latter, maybe, the way you said it. The next letter should tell you actually, that letter you got should say, we found you disabled as of. I think it's the first letter. But there will be a second letter that also says, and from this date to this date, you get paid this much. And then we had COLA. And then so from this date to this date, that's assuming you have back benefits. But that should be in the letters, first or second letter, generally. Okay. And it's from the field. Well, could be from the payment office. I shouldn't say that. It's not from the DDS who was working up your case. That's once you're done and there's a decision, it is gone from there. Totally gone. Some people I know make the mistake of calling their adjudicator. And it's like, that's no longer even in their purview, Neolog, with the thousands of workers being cut at the SSA, do you suppose electronic payments will be delayed? I do not think so. Because first of all, no one that's doing the electronic payments is getting removed, as far as I know. It is all those other areas. I don't know if you were here earlier when I touched on what the powers that be that actually know have been speaking about, as opposed to media pundits. And that the ones that are being cut are not the ones that do business for beneficiaries and claimants to get them paid. So take that as you will. Valerie says, I guess she's correcting what she said. How to receive back pay when approval for disability came through on February 3rd. The approval letter says it will be retro to January 23. Still nothing. Also, it takes time for them to do the calculations. Also, you mentioned you have an SSI claim. For everyone who has a concurrent claim, SSI and SSD, it does make things a little bit slower because 2 different offices now have to do 2 different things, and they don't do them simultaneously. Thus far, anyway. SSI is done first, and then they go and do SSD, because then they have to subtract out sometimes some of the SSI that they already paid you, blah, blah, blah. So if the retro, it says retro to January 23, so maybe that means that they found you disabled around July of 22. If the retro goes back to January 23, probably you were found disabled at least 5 months before then, because you had that 5-month waiting period that you survived. Anyway, I hope that helps. It'll come. It will come. It just might be slow. Okay. Phantom Canuck says my letter was referring to a review. Okay. Does that mean you're getting a CDR, or are you a review? You just applied though, right? It's not really a review then. It's like they just want to make sure your application is fine. It sounds like that would be normal. Yeah, you didn't send it back with tracking. So just keep your fingers crossed. You know, there's probably at least 50% chance it gets there. For what that's worth, you know. If you don't see any action in like 2 months, you don't receive anything to indicate that it's alive, I would call them. In fact, maybe you could call them in 3 weeks and say, hey, I just want to make sure you got my mail that you had asked for, and say, could you please look it up and see if you at least received it? I know you might not have been able to process it because they're very short staffed, right? Can you just see if it got there? I did this yesterday, and or was it the day before? And 3 months ago, we sent in rep documents, and they confirmed that they have them. I sent them in like 5 times, but no one's been able to get to them yet. So there's a lot going on there. And by the way, we filed in 2024. So when you're all worried about the cuts and everything now, nothing to do with it. This has been a train wreck for such a long time, and a train wreck going south, further south. So it was either, I look at it this way, it's either we do something or it dies. You know, that's just all there is to it. And claimants and beneficiaries, of which I will be one in a few short years. So I have self-interest here. So it needs to be fixed. Pull the Band-Aid off. The flyer. I wonder what those other letters in your name are, the flyer. The flyer per fraud. I don't know what that means. Okay. At the ALJ self-representation, just got the files. Have 5 days to object to the records. Can I make comments of their doctor's review that say I don't? No. Well, you can do whatever you want. Usually objection is, that is not legal. Like, you know that it violates a rule. Like, let's say there is I'm trying to think of an example. It's so rare. Well, if someone else's records are in your stuff, you would object to that. Like, that's not me. If they're missing something that you know was sent, you could notify them at that time. When you want to make comments of their doctor's review that says you don't meet all the criteria for a listing, when my records show I do, you're not really a credentialed medical expert that you can make the argument. Don't get me wrong. That would be something you would do in a brief. That's not the same as the objections. But better yet is having your doctor go all the way through the listing and say, here's my medical record that shows this. Here's my medical record that shows this. You know, on 12/4, 23, our diagnostics showed this, and that's what this required. Like, see, you almost want to. You can do it, but it's probably taken more to heart if a medical expert does. But you could do it if you don't have one to do it, and oftentimes the doctor's not going to do it for you. So that's not really. You're not objecting to their opinion because they're entitled to it. The persuasion that their opinion should not be given a lot of weight by the judge, that would be more of a brief argument, you know. and that's very case specific, as where you can point out that one doesn't hold a lot of water, Judge, because look at this one that treated me, like their doctor saw me once. My doctor's seen me 50 times in the last 5 years, and look at his records and what they show. But then you want to pinpoint exactly which ones you're referring to. Kind of lead the horse to water, I hope that helps. So there's like a legal brief argument. And there's, if there's a record, let's say it was a doctor and you look it up and he's actually no longer licensed. We've had objection at a hearing when vocational expert who has to kind of set up a resume that's part of the record, and his licensing as a VE had expired. Now, it turns out he had renewed it. It just hadn't been included as part. So that was fixed, My battles are not generally with the stuff like that. The technicalities will get resolved. So the big fight is with the merits, for sure. Okay. John Lantieri. Hey, bud. How are you? One of my favorite people. John Lantieri in the house. Quick question. Do you think that the no tax on Social Security will go through? Oh my gosh, I would love it. It would be great for everybody. Disabled people, elderly people. Yeah, that would be really good. Do I think it'll go through? I can't say. It depends how much obstruction there is, right? I mean, we know there's a lot of obstruction. So my only hope is that if it's going to go through, it probably has to go through very soon. I don't know. I don't really have a good grasp on the numbers and, the obstructors and all that. So we'll see. I do hope so, because like I said, I'll be collecting one way or another. I'm collecting in a few years. So I don't want to pay taxes. We'll see. I mean, if you think about it, everyone paid taxes on all that income, plus the Social Security tax, to get the benefits that they have now as disabled or retired. So it does seem kind of like a bizarre tax, doesn't it? Okay, so Matthew says he has no problem getting representation for my case, but I'm picky. Okay, that's great. But sometimes getting one is better than not getting one. And I know you're well studied on this, Matthew. I know you spent a lot of time studying it, and I'm very, very impressed. I really am. You're very diligent. I mean, you can give it a try with somebody. You can always terminate them later. You have that right, that unilateral right to get rid of a representative no matter what. Okay. I know you might want them to do a lot of, I don't want to use the word hand holding. I'm not trying to be patronizing like that, but you want them to keep you educated all along as you go. You've kind of expressed that before. And I said, they're probably not going to be able to do that because they're going to be busy working on cases, including yours. So you have to be able to forego asking for the free education from them if you expect them to work for free on your case, which is what they're doing the entire time they work on it. And they're taking the risk of losing it. And since you are in a high risk group, as you will, that's gonna be kind of a factor. All right. So consider it. Consider getting one. And then if you can't stand it because you're like, no, I just can't stand having them when I can't get their attention when I need it, then terminate them. That there's no crime in that. Oh my gosh, RX, are you serious? Gifted 5 all things Social Security memberships. I don't even know how that works. That's possible? I'm really clueless. But that sounds super nice. Woo. Wow. Oh. And as you know, the younger crowd is what that helps bring in. And some of the other, I have a video on it someplace, guys. It's like the 5 areas I see have such trouble getting representation because of the stats on them. People that, don't want to be having any non-winning cases because it means they just paid out all this money for free work, staff, whatever, and it's out of pocket. that helps so much. It really does. That really enables. I mean, I wish a lot of my colleagues would do the same, but it is what it is. Okay. Hi, Deb. My cat is going crazy today too. 60-mile-per-hour winds and 8 inches of snow. Oh, and you're out. What was it? Iowa or Idaho? Iowa, right? Yeah, I got cats, dogs. It's a zoo here. It was a brain fart during COVID, a parental brain fart, and now, of course, I would never disregard a pet we take in. It's our duty to live with our choices and do the right thing. But boy, I do have a little remorse, even though I love them each individually. Okay. Cooper Elisa, I think you said you were a new member or something, or maybe a new visitor. Welcome. 57-year-old veteran. Okay. Welcome. And thank you so much for your service, Cooper Elisa. I can't be more thankful. For sure. Schizoaffective bipolar BPD. BPD, I believe, is borderline personality disorder. My doctor wants me to go inpatient for 3 weeks for ECT. I believe that's electric. Is it shock therapy, or is there a different word for the C there? Have had outpatient ECT, but missed some sessions. Will it look bad if I don't? Good if I do. Gosh. You're 57 years old. I assume you have physical limitations, Cooper Lisa, and we could talk about this separately if you don't have a representative. ECT is pretty significant treatment. It indicates a severity that, basic mental health therapy does not. So in that regard, it does, because you have to have a certain severity for that to even be approved, right? Recommended and approved. So in that regard, it looks good for a case. That said, depending on the rest of your case, you might not need that from a legal point of view to prevail in your case. Now, I don't know, did you lose already? Did you have a denial on initial? That could be an issue right there. But if not, it might, you might not need that. Of course, if it's going to be good for you, yeah, I mean, I'm not totally up on it. I don't know, the pros and the cons. It always sounds a little scary to those of us that are a little more ignorant on it. And I include myself in that ignorant bunch. It does signify a condition level of severity. Now, the mere recommendation being in writing could also be helpful, even if you don't do it. Like, let's say you're fearful, or it causes pain, or, makes you more forgetful after, whatever. And I'm just saying this broadly, not specifically to your case, but sometimes the mere recommendation by the medical professor then shows that you have the severity, you are a candidate for this, whether or not you take it or not. Now, there is some scuttle about, and I had a video on this a while back, declining medical recommended treatments and how the SSA reflects on that. And I can only speak to it broadly. There can be a negative effect, but if there is a very good explanation as to your personal reasons for not doing something, it could be the doctor told me there's like a very good chance it won't do anything helpful for me, but that it will take away my memory. I'm just making this up as I go along. If that's expressed in the record, that can help a non-compliance with medical recommendations not reflect badly on a case. And I'm not sure it necessarily would in this case anyway. But I would read up in that area if that's something you're interested in doing. But again, if you at 57, which, hello, sister, we're roommates in different wombs back in the day, or brother, I don't know. If you need to look at this or want to discuss it, reach out. And that's only if you don't have a representative, because I will not interfere with someone's current relationship. So if you don't, I'm happy to go fill out the evaluation and then shoot it over, because that's going to ask you if there's anything physical. Because if over 50 crowd, remember, you have to have something physical for those grids to apply. Then of course that's to be sufficiently physical. But if there's no physical, and you only mentioned mental here, then the grids don't apply to you. But I have a hard time believing that at our age, we all have something, and you were a veteran, you probably did a lot of physical stuff. Sometimes those things cause deterioration, arthritis is later. It could be a variety of things. So we get to the nuts and bolts of all that. And if we can make the grids be yet another way to prevail, as opposed to strictly winning on a listing, which would be what the mental health thing would probably demand of you, why not have more than one path to success with your claim, right? Thank you again for your service. From the bottom of my heart. Okay. Muley. Welcome back. Have you appealed an onset date? Yes. If you have you lost one? Yes. Or what were your odds when appealing? Thanks for the info. Okay. Yes, we've appealed onset dates. We do it with great care. I think you want to look at what can I lose. There's always a risk they totally overturn your case. So you have to look at the actual details of the case and figure out if that is in any way remotely likely, even if it's a 10% chance. If that is very unlikely, and that the only downfall you're looking at is we're going to affirm the onset they gave you. Okay, you put in a lot, you may put in extra work, but no harm, no foul. You didn't get the earlier onset, but you didn't lose anything either. The one I've had, we don't do them often, but another consideration is there going to be a lot of back benefits for the claimant? So if it's going to be 3 months of back benefits, maybe that's not worth it in the spiel of things, particularly if it's a risky case to do it with. Like you're glad to get the award anyway. Like an under 50 person, probably that wouldn't necessarily be something I would appeal, or I wouldn't recommend them appealing. And I probably wouldn't represent them on it because I think, but yeah, like is the financial reward for the claimant worth it? The one I did, Muley, that did not work out, after I represented them underneath, we prevailed, but the onset was on the 55th birthday, which he hadn't even, I think it was hitting next month. No, hit it. Wait a minute. That would be wrong. We prevailed in, say, December. He had turned 55 in August. And they said, okay, as of August, you're disabled because of the 55 rule. Now, I know for sure he was disabled under the 50-year-old grid rule. But the lower level, which was Recon, I think, disagreed. I think it's kind of a ploy. Me and colleagues have discussed this, where they'll give them the win, but they'll push it to the 55th so they can save all this back benefits. I thought it was ridiculous. So I did agree to, and he was devastated. That was like 2 years of lost back benefits. It was a New Jersey case. Very upset, very upset. Really needed that back benefits, and we appealed. We went, so another year waiting for hearing, went to hearing, thought it went pretty well, was pretty shocked when the judge, he called it a favorable, but really it wasn't a favorable because you affirmed the lower level. So I didn't really understand how that was favorable. I think that was a typo. Maybe because it's a de novo decision and he decided to just embrace you know, the lower decision. So we did a lot of work, obviously unpaid. The whole case was unpaid. I was very glad, though, that my client won his disability, but there was no back benefits. And while I could have done a fee petition for a fee for all the work to get him his disability, I didn't want to do that. I just generally don't do that when that happens. I'm weird. Like, I don't like payment plans. I have them, but I haven't used them in years. I just pretty much waive the fee when we win, and they did an onset like that. It is a terrific way to screw over the representative by the SSA, but it is what it is. Appealing an onset date is a very fact specific. You got to look at a lot of factors like the ones I just mentioned, and do it with care. Make sure there is a strong case and there's a good reward to win. Like, you're risking something. So you want to make sure, you know, the Russian roulette or the casino rewards will be sufficient. Mr. Hamilton, you're new here? I thought I saw Mr. Hamilton before. Okay. Well, nice to meet you. I turned 62 this year. I have not worked for the last 7 years. I do have 10 years of work. Will I be all right to collect SSA? I think you're referring to early retirement. Yeah. If you're vested 10 years, you should be able to get early retirement. The unfortunate thing about taking early retirement at 62 is that you are cutting off about 35% of your benefit every month that you won't get. And that's a ballpark number, guys. So, you know, 30, 35, whatever it is. I think it's about that. And that's a permanent reduction, Mr. Hamilton. So you have to be happy to, you know, you have to be content with accepting that. Haven't worked in 7 years. I assume that's a financial struggle, and that's why you're hanging on and saying, but I got to take it at 62. This is endless. If you haven't worked, I just want to add this. If you haven't worked for 7 years, is that because you were disabled? And if you were, oh my goodness, if you were, have you filed for Social Security disability when you were still insured? Because you're not going to be insured now for the current time. But if you were insured for, say, 5 years of those 7 years, you could file now. If you haven't done this already and gotten denied and wiped out that time period as already adjudicated, you could file now, prove that you became disabled before your DLI ran out, and then you can, of course, still file for the early retirement if you need something no matter what. And then that early retirement will switch to Social Security disability, which is the same thing as taking your full retirement age, but taking it early without penalty because you were disabled. I know I have video on this. Like, don't necessarily give up the opportunity to do SSD. If you can swallow the frustrations of SSD process, and if you have to do early retirement, do it as well. Yeah. I mean, if you want to discuss that, feel free to reach out. I always say just go to the joydisability.com site and fill out the eval form. Put in there somewhere in the narrative that we spoke on here and what day, and I'll make sure to pick it out myself. Okay. But yeah, you can definitely file for early retirement. It just comes at a great cost. That's all. If you don't prevail on SSD. So as long as you know what you're getting and you're okay with it, that's fine. You know, but if you are disabled and that's why you stop, maybe that's something to consider. Thoughts, right? Okay. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. Charlene Ferguson. Hi, I'm in EPA stage. Okay, so you expired your trial work period, right? So you've been working as a disabled person, which can be very great. ssdi. I'm interested in an open server position. Open server, I don't know what that is. I'm wondering that since I have never been a server, could I ask for accommodations on the job and training? Anyone can ask for anything. I don't know what an open server is. When I think of server, I think of a server in a restaurant because I did that for years. I bartended, I served, I did all sorts of things 30 years ago when I was deciding I was never going back to work at a firm and I was hanging my own shingle. Nothing was beneath me. And it also helped me pay my school loans, pay my rent. And I also saved up to buy my little modest home over here in Pennsylvania because I was from Jersey and that was just completely unaffordable. So now a server, if you're talking about what I just mentioned, which I don't know what an open server is, but if you are, that's a very physically arduous job. It might be considered light, but you are on your feet and you are running and you are carrying the whole time. It's very industrious. So if you have physical issues and if that's the kind of server you are talking about, that you might want to make sure that's not contraindicated by your disabilities. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what that server is, if it's something different. I mean, servers have to do with computers, right? But I don't know feel with that. And you do know, of course, Charlene, that you're in the EPE stage every day that you earn over, every month you earn over SGA, you will owe back the money you got from SSD. And you might not find out, like they won't pull it back necessarily in real time. And it could be where you have a very many thousands of dollars in overpayment. So tread cautiously. If you know you're doing SGA work and you're going to owe it back, you might just want to put the SSD you got in another bank account, earn some interest, and when they demand it, shoot it over to them. You know, otherwise they're going to be taking your retirement one day, or if you get back on SSD, they're going to be taking that. I mean, you know, that's me and my cautious conservative nature. I'm like, put it in a high interest savings account, which is not so high, but right now they're higher than they usually are. Thank you, Christina Villarreal. How are people supposed to live on SGA? I think you mean under SGA, if they're going to be able to work at all. I'm not a person who has credentials on how you live and survive out in the woods or on low income. Maybe talk to people who do it. You know, they budget down. Some people have family they rely on. You know, when it's hard because so much of the time, particularly, you know, us regular workers, we are not able, you know, we're so busy paying bills on, you know, average income, raising kids that can be expensive, paying taxes that may be too high, that we do not have savings for this rainy day. I know all of the financial, well-vetted experts like David Ramsey, for instance, they talk about having that emergency fund. I know my husband and I worked on that for the last several years. And believe it or not, what you can accomplish by following some of those steps is amazing. But when we, you know, there was a time when we hadn't done that. So we'd be in the very same boat. I always hope that people have not burned bridges with family and friends. You know, like when my mom became unable to work at her job and she was older and on regular Social Security, she came and lived with us. That's what family's for. She does get Social Security, so it's not like she's borrowing. She pays her own way and, you know, contributes and everything. But if you don't have that family or a reliable close friend or what have you, it's tough. You've got to apply for all the welfare benefits you can, is the way I see it. You know, or, you know, SGA is $16.20 a month. I do know people who live on far less than that. In fact, all of our SSI people do. Because remember, that's only $967. But it means filing for housing assistance. It means SNAP, getting food stamps, maybe utility assistance, low-income housing, all those things, so that what money you are making, more of it can stay in your pocket and you can continue to pursue your case. And I say all that generally because that's not my forte. It's not easy. People do it though. So I don't know if there's support groups about people describing how they did it. That might be something. All the little smart little strategies to get by. Obviously where we live matters. If we choose to live in Bel Air versus, maybe a little rural county in Tennessee, I don't know. Sorry, that's a child who wants me to pick him up early and I'm not doing it. So I can't answer those questions. I can just throw up maybe places to look and things to think about. SSA, remember, it's not designed to tell you how to live your life. It's only an insurance policy that if you prevail and prove it, and yes, it's very slow right now. It's horrible. You get your benefits. That's all they give you. They don't give you legal advice. They don't give you an accommodated job. They don't give you any of that stuff. But got to go to other sources for all that. So, okay. Hang in there. It's doable. I see people do it all the time, but it all depends on everybody's choices and circumstances, and it takes obviously significant downsizing and all. Okay. The flyer. Thank you. I'm a male, filed for different conditions, PTSD, lumbar migraines, and they had a gynecologist do the medical opinion. I know, flyer. Goodness. You're in for all these things that have nothing to do with gynecology, and you got a MD who is a gynecologist specialist. I suppose in theory, a family practitioner MD, I mean, a gynecologist is no less than that. They've just got an additional specialty, I think. It is acceptable under the SS rules. They just have to be an MD. Or even now, I think maybe ARMP and CRMP and all that. It's frustrating though. How about a gynecologist? Yeah, discussing your lumbar back problems. But I in theory, I guess, since a regular MD can do it, I think many of us think it should be a specialist in the area, but SSA is not going to want to pay that, and specialists are not going to want to do it for the amount the SSA pays. They don't pay huge for these. That's why these consultative exams are sometimes very rote, very quick, very you're practically not even acknowledged when you're there. And then there are good ones, so I don't want to put them all down. But this is the complaints we hear about. But yeah. Yeah, I'm just chuckling because we do make fun of this whole thing about, they're using gynecologists. I guess because the gynecologists are willing to, I don't know. Is it a retired gynecologist, by the way? A lot of times it's retired doctors, I guess they're doing it in their spare time. God, this whole screen thing is weird. I just don't feel like pulling out a green screen behind me. It's like such a pain. So I'm sorry if it's distracting, guys. Neolog's talking about this trust fund and no tax won't save the trust fund. Smash the FICA tax or boost it with Doge savings. You look more like the Neolog, you're very kind, and that is only because of the filters. And I mean that. I'm not being modest. I'm not being, it's only because of the filters if I look younger than my age. And maybe because I'm immature. I don't know. No tax won't save. I'm not sure if you're saying we should be taxed on our Social Security because taking it away won't save the trust fund. No, it won't save the trust fund, but I don't think it's going to hurt it either. Now, FICA tax is different. You said smash the FICA tax. That's saying no taxes should go in to make the funds. remember, and this might not be what you're saying. So Social Security trust funds, the disability and the old age dependents ones, they are, I believe it's still about 85% funded by workers, whether you're a disabled worker, non-disabled worker, are the Social Security tax we pay. It's payroll tax. It's not our federal income tax. It's the Social Security tax only. And the rest is from investments that earn interest and all that other stuff. And the reason why it's paid for by workers is because workers are the only ones that can collect on it. So it's appropriate. It's like we buy it. It's for us. That's why it's not welfare and it's not for non-workers. They can do the welfare SSI, not the SSD or the SSR. It was supposed to be a benefit paid for by workers for workers. So, yeah. Anyway, 2 thoughts on that. Hello, Canabayo. Okay. She has a unique situation that others might be going through. You can feel free to share. If it's something I can share on here, I'm happy to do that, Canna. And I don't think we've met, so nice to meet you. 2:47. We got like 15 minutes, guys. Filing for, this is Cooper Lisa again. Filing for SSDI, electroconvulsive. Okay. I said shock. Is that like a politically incorrect way of saying it? Is it the same thing though? Electroconvulsive therapy causes my memory problems to be worse. Yeah, I thought so. Then the original severity also doesn't show much improvement. If you're going to say no to it, and those are all, I think, good reasons, make sure it's really well documented with your doctor. If that means you have to message it through the portal, if they have one, as to what, but make sure it is in the medical record why you're saying no. This is just to be safe in terms of that whole thing about medical compliance. As per you, Doc, you said that there doesn't tend to show much improvement and has not in the past with me. As you know, we discussed how my memory gets worse and worse, and I feel like I'm not going to remember anything if I do it again. And you said that is a definite side effect of ECT. Yeah. That's how, if you're going to say no, I would document those reasons and make sure they show up in your medical record. There are ways to do that to help it, make sure it gets in there. I'm really sorry for all you're going through. But anyway, if you decide you want some assistance, just give me a holler, okay? We will take a look, and we could know within a day if we can accept. So probably very fast. Tiger bites. I got through finally after many times trying to get in touch with SSA. Let me tell you, trying to get through to the Las Vegas SSA right now is a nightmare. I was actually going to videotape the outgoing message and stick it up as a video. Like, this is what you're going to hear. They don't even say you can stay on hold. They don't even say, hey, we can call you back at this number. They say, we're busy, call back later. Not kidding. And often it's after you've waited for a long time. That's the Buffalo one. Okay. It took an hour and a half. The representative stated it may take a year for my initial claim. It's been over 9 months. And that the representative is right. This has been the durational nightmare for a few years now, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. Hopefully it will get fixed now that they're finally doing something about it, but I don't know how long that's going to be. Hang in there. I mean, I'd like to think that those that have been waiting 9 months are going to be prioritized. That's generally how it goes. And you can contact your congressperson. I have videos on that. And just say, hey, I don't think anyone's working on my case. Because you contacted the SSA, I'm thinking the field office. Your case should be at the DDS right now. If you have gotten recent correspondence from the adjudicator, then they are working on your case. And so it's moving along, and then it's probably going to wrap up faster than if you don't have one, you're still waiting in line to get an adjudicator assigned to your case. So that will make a difference. So you can try to answer that question for yourself. Do I have an adjudicator? Did I get any mail from them? Was it more than 6 months ago? Or was it last month? If it was last month, you have someone on the case probably. and they're doing stuff. Okay. I know it's so frustrating, right? Let's see. Dan DM's bringing up the case where evidence is tough because your insurance denies your MRI tests. That's a nightmare, and we see this a lot. A lot of times I also see, though, that the prescribing doctor, let's say an orthopedist, appeals the denial. And sometimes it's like, well, he has to have PT first, physical therapy first, or x-rays first. So then you can do those things and then get the MRI. It takes an appeal, and they can appeal that denial and say he really needs it because, and they know the basis why the insurance company can deny and can't deny. And while it's probably true that insurance companies deny without having that basis in hand, pointing it out to them sometimes flips that denial into okay, we're going to let them have it. But you got to do that. And, speak to your doctor's office and be like, hey, can you appeal this? Because this MRIs, depending on I don't know what your medical problems are, Dan, but the medical needs, the legal needs for updated MRIs when you haven't had, if you have like orthopedic problems or things of that nature, back, whatever, it can show a lot more than X-ray, right? Spinal cord business and all that. So good luck. But I would say see if you can get that appealed. And usually the doctor does it for you. Earth sign, my return to work day is March of 25. Can I get a note from my doctor? A note about what? I don't know what this is about or something. I don't think you said anything above, right? Am I out in my field here? Oh, Neolog is saying to help the SS fund, smash the FICA cap. Neolog, I will say this. If they're going to do anything, that would be the thing. I agree. I mean, yes, get rid of the fraud and all that, of course, and get rid of those silly gravy train units that don't help claimants and beneficiaries get the job done along with it. But that's the least damaging, because I don't like having increased taxes of any kind. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I think the government needs to learn it used to have no income tax, and it did just fine. And then it got one temporarily, and it held on it forever after World War I, and increased it, the percentages, which just shows it's sucking more out. So the FICA cap, though, he's referring to, instead of us only taxing the first 168 or whatever it is, 68,200 of income, let the richer people let it go higher. Let it go to, say, 400, so that, us, middle income, lower income people, we're paying SS on every dollar we bring in. Self-employeds are paying 12.4%. And wealthier earners, and again, I'm not into, let's just jam it to the wealthy. That's not what I'm saying, because I don't agree with that at all. However, in this case, something's got to give. And if cutting out the waste isn't going to be enough, I agree with, it shouldn't have to be this way. The fund did fine before. So whatever they changed, as causes. But the only people that it will affect at all in the negative is those making more than $168,200, who will now be paying the FICA tax on those dollars above that. They're already paying it like we are on the stuff below, but they get a bunch of their income scot-free with it. And so, and by the way, Neolog, why not just go higher than 400? Just saying. And I'm only saying this if we have to raise taxes, that is the way I would go with it, because someone could give me a different idea that says there's other great ideas. That's fabulous. I'd like to hear them. But that's the only one I can think of that. I don't think you should cut anybody's benefits. I don't think you should raise the age of retirement. I mean, goodness, we can't even get there. We're all getting disabled beforehand, right? We're a pretty unhealthy society. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And again, I'm pro people getting wealthy and, entrepreneurs and all that stuff. So I don't want to see penalized for making good money when they worked hard for it. That's not what I'm saying. But when we have to do something, that's where I would go, because reducing benefits, raising retirement age, heck no, that's not it. That's not a winner in my book. Okay, Canna, hello again. I filed for ssdi March of 2020. I had an administrative hearing 12 of 21. Okay. I went back to work, right after, and found out a month later I was awarded ssdi. I continued to work for 4 months, SGA. Then all right, well, that's not too bad. So Canna filed in 2020, had a hearing, wasn't working, had a hearing December of 2021, went back to work shortly after the hearing. Probably you needed to, right? I assume you went back to work full time. And then you get an award letter that you won, 322. And you continue to work for 4 months. Was that 4 months total or 4 months after 322? Then could not work any further. I would say the biggest question is, well, those months will clearly be TWP months, presumably. They're probably over SGA, but you shouldn't have to pay them back because they are TWP months, which would be 9. So you've eaten up a bunch of your, maybe 6 months. What is it? 5, 6 months? You're kind of protected. Don't screw it up again. Like I think the dates worked out okay for you. And I don't know what your question is on this, but this is just a thing to bring up. Like, I think it would work out for Canada where it's not going to come back and smack them in the face. They're going to register the trial work months, because if you do another few, now you're going to be in your EPE. But if you stop and you continue to stop, it's going to be fine. It's a risk we take. Sometimes you can do a trial work period, stop before you use up your trial work period months. It's my suggestion. And then work under SGA. No, actually, under trial work period would be even better. But if you need the money, I mean, kind of it's hard. You got to be really creative on how to get by. As brought up by someone above, how do you get by under SGA? And I should say to that person, I forget who that was, there is such thing as failed work attempt. You go back to work for 3 months making balls to the wall money, and then you stop due to your disabilities. That can be argued in your case that it's a failed work attempt. It'll count for TWP and all that potentially, but it won't necessarily kill your case. So you can do those efforts periodically to work more robustly. It's going to, they're going to look at it and say, well, God, he was lifting 75-pound items all day long. Does he really have that bad? Like, so you got to make sure you pick your job smart. But it's another way to get by periodically doing that while your case is pending. So it's not always under SGA, but you don't want it to be a successful work attempt either. And all the while, you've got to be treating, and complaining about how much it hurts, if that's the case. Okay? All right, guys, we're at the 2-hour mark. I'm just going to see if there's any more questions. Oh, Canabio. Okay, so SSA caught up with your work. I think that's what you're saying about the 2022 work. So yeah, you got to provide them what you got. I think it should be okay. Okay. But it's going to be reflected, because then if you do it again, the culmination can make a difference. So I think you're good if you just take a chill pill on it. Going forward, either be under TWP, certainly under SGA. But if you really want to be cautious, stay under TWP too. I hope I answered that question, Kenna. Okay, Mr. Hamilton, I'm not sure if there's relevancy to that. My wife makes $70,000 a year. Okay, that's nice. You probably had a point, but I'm not seeing the connected thing. And we are going to wrap this up soon, guys. I just did this is Love Live Journey. It's a good journey to have, right? Loving and living. I just did my compression, psychological evaluation compression. Oh, I think maybe you mean consultative. Last week for SSI, now they're sending me to the DTR. DTR? Do you mean the doctor? I don't know how long it'll be until you have a decision. Usually after evaluations are done, historically anyway, that's when it goes to maybe you're saying the medical expert that makes some decisions. They kind of make the RFC up. Usually, historically, it would be just a few weeks. They get the report in, the other doctor looks at it, and they, come out with the RFC, and the adjudicator can pretty quickly issue a denial or an award based on that RFC. But, is that medical expert that's supposed to review and make the RFC, is he on vacation? Is he got too many cases going on? It could take longer. So I can't really give you a time frame. But historically, it used to be that was the last thing, and then we'd get in a result within a few weeks. Hi, Cancer Free. Nice to see you again. Cancer asks, after you are, I guess, with the Social Security doctors, I think you mean consultative examinations, right? How long should it be before I know if I'm denied or approved? I just answered that for the other guy. So just now. Charlene Ferguson, no physical issues at all. And you have the mentality to be a server. Are you sure you're disabled from all jobs? I guess would be the question. And that's kind of like your burden. I'm just going to go scroll up and see what you said before. And that refresh me. Oh, well, you are. That's right. You're already on SSD. What do you need accommodations for? What are you on SSD for? It must be mental, right? You said you have no physical issues. So it would be the accommodations. Like maybe I only need 2-hour shifts because my mental state might deteriorate. I don't know enough about your case to really opine there, Charlene. I'm sorry. Cannabio, I do not think you're going to owe I do not think, based on the fact you said, that you're going to owe the SSA because you had that work in between. And you kept working after the decision because you're in a trial work period and they encourage that. And you didn't expire your trial work period because you didn't go 9 months. So you shouldn't owe it back. It should still be disabled, assuming you're not medically improved elsewise. So I would argue it was a failed work attempt too, if it was under 6 months. You're not going to have to get that far though. I think you're going to be fine. Valerie Woodson. Hello again. Anything to remember if filing for ex-spouse benefits when they began SS at 70? Got full benefits from a 30-plus year career? Nope. I say if those ex-spouse benefits are going to be better than your own, you're going to opt for them, right? Otherwise, you enjoy your own, whatever one's bigger, right? John Gone. You're so funny. You're so funny. Also, it took. Ooh. Long Live Journey had a 2.5-hour consultative psychiatric evaluation with SSA. I think that's pretty long. I think it's long. I think that's longer than usual. I think because some of the physical ones are like, I think psychological does take longer than physical, but 2.5 hours seems quite a long time. So I don't think it's typical. Okay, FLNC girl. Hi, Stephanie. Hello to you. I hope you are well. It's been 3 weeks since my medical exam. Should I follow up with the person handling my case? Do you have something to share to them, or you just want to bug them? If you're saying, hey, hurry up, blah, 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 I wouldn't do that. If you have medical evidence that they don't have that's come up, yeah. I mean, you want to send it up. You don't have to call them to do that. You can fax it to them. You should have a barcode, right? If you don't have a barcode, you can call them for that. But I wouldn't be like, hey, hurry up. Because hurry up and tick somebody off and irritate them. You just don't know if that could flip the, that's how I always feel about that. And 3 weeks is not that long in today's age. And not even before things were backed up. That wasn't excessive yet. Time to meditate. Just denied for PTSD, MDD, major depressive disorder. Main issues, memory and cognitive, medical evaluation done and states unemployable. Also 53, vet, I assume 100% PNT, yeah, unemployable. Was diagnosed with untreated ADHD after denial. Well, I'm sorry you were denied. Do you have physical issues? Time? Remember, 53 won't really matter so much if you don't have physical issues, because then the grids don't apply if you don't. So the only things you have mentioned, I think, are mental. So, there are, SSA doesn't necessarily buy the unemployability in terms of their definition, which is a 3rd grade, unstressed, no skills, low memory type of job. It's probably what they probably pegged you at being able to do an unskilled, like I said, low stress, like that whole range of jobs, and not something greater because of all your problems. But there are things you can, at 53, you got to have something physical going on, right? Are you an Adonis or you're not an Adonis? If you want me to take a look at it, go to joydisability.com, upper left hand, it's the free SSD evaluation. It is for people looking for representation, and they want someone, us to look at it and see if it would be something we would take. And then we can discuss, things that you can do to improve that claim, and then we can help you with. You are free to do that for sure. Okay. Sugar got approved yesterday. Applied July 12th of 2024. You got a good, fast decision in this day and age. That's fabulous, Sugar. Woohoo! Michigan. I wonder if that's pursuant to that new rule. It's a temporary rule, but it's supposed to be around for about 2 years, where an adjudicator, if they can award you totally on physical, I think that's what it is. I think I did a video on this. It just came out. It might have come out a month ago, but I just did a video recently. They can award without it having to go to the medical expert. Don't know if that's what happened, but they have the power to. It's like letting the adjudicator have a little bit of, not having to go to a medical expert when the evidence is clear that it would be maybe a listing level on physical. So that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. That was quick. Indeed, it was. Oh, MOMs. Yeah. Was I quoting the 2024? The 2024 amount? It does go up every year. Talking about the FICA tax cap that we were talking about before. Yeah, neolog, we're on the same page. History tells us that when we look at history and what's happened when that's happened. So, yeah. Hi, S. Lewis. Woohoo. No questions from me today. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for chiming in. Good to see you. S. Lewis Grande says, going on, you made a couple of good points that might be relevant to me. I will have to re-listen because I have plumbers at my place replacing a sump pump. Yeah, they can be a little loud and distracting, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, Mike Zen. Hi, Mike. Nice. I don't think we met, right? I've been out of work after 25 years in construction and Texas SSD. It takes so long. Everyone's taking long. It's not just Texas. My lower back is messed up and my right shoulder, as well as both MRI images, show I have damage. Okay. Well, have you applied? You know, that's a lot. I think a lot of what goes on with you will depend on your age, your vocational profile. Are you over 50, under 50? And between 50 and 55 or 55. 25 years, if you started at 18, you're still pretty young in their book. And because they figure you can do something other than construction. That's where that kind of boils down. So I don't know. If you say 69, were you born in 1969? That might be, if you were, that could be a good age in terms of vocational profile. Anyway, you can always fill out the eval and I'm happy to take a look at it for you. Okay. Sugar's saying that an attorney filled out her application. That's good. They obviously did a fine job for you. Because believe it or not, guys, an application can be done really poorly. I would say the biggest poor thing is when you don't include all of your medical and all of your impairments that you're alleging. Some people make the mistake of just including the big bad one that took them out of their job. And that's a huge mistake. It's really coming down out there. Gigi. I know, guys, I'm going over. That's because my son just told me that my daughter is picking him up. He wanted me to pick him up early because he's not very responsible giving me good time frames. So I told him no, not till 4 o'clock. I have been turned down for SSD twice, Gigi says. I now have a scheduled telephone hearing in 2 months. What can I expect? That would depend on if you've improved your medical evidence from the prior 2 times. And when you say 2 times, is that on initial and recon, or have you actually applied and done the process 2 prior times? Much, of course, will depend on your vocational profile as well, which we talk about a lot, right? It's so important. But makes me think that you're saying, what can I expect? You have not had an ALJ hearing. So maybe those 2 denials were just below an initial and recon, which is not unusual for people that end up winning. So I think I have a video on what to expect at an ALJ hearing. I can't believe I wouldn't have that. There's like 800 videos, so I can't really say for sure. But I do believe so. Look under the playlist, ALJ hearing maybe. That's where it would be. I think this playlist called up. Okay. All right. Okay. So Viv is talking about now. Someone had said they had a 2.5-hour psychiatric consultative examination or psychological with SSA provider. Viv is saying hers was only 25 minutes. So yeah, I think the 2.5 is really long. Maybe that's a very diligent person. Doesn't necessarily mean good or bad one way or the other, but I think that is long. Okay, so here's another point that I can bring out about Viv's statement. She had a mental status exam, but she says that her SSD claim is physical only. Well, guess what? It's not now. And the reason that probably is, if you did not allege any mental health impairments, there's something in your medical records that say maybe you have anxiety. Maybe you complain about being anxious to your doctor. When the adjudicators see that, they're supposed to be like, anxiety. Let's see if that would affect, whether she can do, any of the jobs in the economy. Maybe they, how significant is the anxiety? They're covering their bases of sorts, but sometimes, and if you're over 50 or 55 and anxiety, which brings on kind of hurts when I'm anxious, my concentration is pretty shot. That would affect the ability to do a high skilled job. So if your prior job was high skilled and you can't do it because of that anxiety, even if you could do it because of the physical, like it was a sedentary and you could do sedentary, that could be an avenue where you could actually win, even though you could do a sedentary job. So it might be that. I don't know your details, Viv, but 25 minutes, I'm not surprised at that amount. That 2.5 hours that someone mentioned above, that was interesting. Mike Zen, SSDI doctor said everything was normal, degenerative wear. That's not, okay. Normal means, so I don't even like the verbiage used, Mike, because degenerative wear is damage. It doesn't have to be from an acute injury. If it limits you, I always say this, people that know me here have heard me say it ad nauseum, I'm sure. If any of your body parts don't work like they did when you were 20, not as fast, not as pain-free, not as durational, not as heavy, in an 8-hour day, can you use each and every one of those 8 hours straight? If you can't, something's up, degenerative or not. Doesn't have to be work-related, doesn't have to be acute injury from a car accident. Degenerative counts. It just matters how significant it is. Torn rotator cuff, that does a lot in terms of reaching and using your arms. Lower back surgery, huge. And that can happen from degenerative wear. Our discs, everything, as we get older, we're on the decay side, right? So, yeah. Yep. Keep that chin up. Louise. Cockroach? Trying to see, I'm a little blind. I want to apply for SSI. I will be 65 soon. Okay, I have a house that I would like to give to my son because it's burden paying taxes, and I live in co-owned house. If you give away an asset you could sell to support yourself, there's going to be a look back period because now you're giving away an asset you could use to support yourself and asking the taxpayers to give their money for you to support yourself instead of you supporting yourself. That said, I would suggest you go to a Medicaid, probably a Medicaid expert, and see if there's, Medicaid expert. SSI is that welfare. So when you're trying to get rid of resources so that you can give them to your kids and rely on the taxpayers, it gets a little nitpicky there. But I am not a financial planner for that kind of stuff. So you're going to want to, there are people that do it though. And you could see if there's some sort of loophole which you can keep your asset and give it away to your child and still get the SSI. Or do you have Social Security retirement, by the way, Louise? Because then it won't matter. But if it's SSI you're trying to get, then it's going to matter. Okay. Okay. Oh, Queenal Day. Do people normally get approved for SSDI with end stage cirrhosis. You know, I have not looked up that listing lately or that area. And I don't get a lot of, I haven't even think I've seen, I've had cirrhosis, but it wasn't like end stage. So it makes me wonder if people do, because otherwise I'd see the cases because they need to be fought. So maybe they do. I can't say for sure. There's often other impairments that go along with that. Queen all day. And the combination of those, even if that wouldn't necessarily, can be an avenue to a prevail. So yeah, I have not looked that up, so I don't want to speak out of turn about what the parameters are for a listing or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Dimple. Hey there. Thank you for the info on what to put in the application and what not to. I'm expecting to be filing this year. I'm having more trouble trying to keep working. Yeah, I get it. You know, everyone here knows I'm biased, that most people should probably have a representative. So consider that as you go along and whether that's something you want to do, just to make sure it comes off as best. It makes for probably if you're going to win, a quicker win, perhaps. If there's no way to win, it's not going to matter, right? Canabio, it's not locational profile, it's vocational with a V. Age, education, and experience. Education is the least to worry about. Age and experience are what helps decide whether you can do your old job or transfer those skills to a different job. So it's particularly important for those over 50. It can be game changing. We have a playlist, by the way, on the grids, and that's what we're referring to. Medical locational rules, aka the grids. Okay, so Mike, you applied back in November of 2023. Wow, you've been there a long time. I'm 55 years old now. Wow, yeah. So reach out if you've been waiting a long time. Are you still an initial? So they denied you once, or did they deny you when you're in Recon? I don't know. Anyway, feel free to reach out. Okay. FLNC girl is saying that her mental health exam was about an hour. See, 2.5 hours seems very long to me. Wow. Love Live Journey. That's a long one. Yeah. 2.5 hour mental status exam. Louise, you don't have enough credits there for the SSI. Louise, you know, if you are short just a few credits, if there's something you can do to gain them, you could have SSR. You know, what if you have like 30 credits and you need 10 more? Part-time work for 2 years. You know, what if you only need, I mean, it depends how low you are, because those credits don't go away. It's not like disability where you have to have them recently enough. For retirement, the entire lifetime counts. None of them get wiped off the board. You just need 40. So if you don't know how many you have, you can look at your Social Security earnings statement and do the math with that, or call, and if you can get thorough, which is a nightmare right now, and has been for quite a while, ask for how many credits you have, and they should be able to tell you. I mean, really part-time work. You know, it could be you're working for 1 month a year and you get enough credits. I mean, who knows, you know, part-time. There is no video level on how it's graded. These things aren't graded. The video I have is more about what to know before you go into a mental health exam. Just some tips, so people are not walking in there, you know, not having a clue. But you've already done yours, so I don't think that would really be something you would need. All right, guys, you're welcome. Love Live Journey. I hope you're all having a great week. Hope to see you next Wednesday. As you know, we always have a video popping out every day of the week. 9 o'clock is when we try to schedule them. And they are little things that came up either during the day, work day, or it could be something with my clients. And it's like a tip that I think everybody or many people might be able to use, some little subset of you out there, or things that are going on in the SS world, but it's not specific to my client work. Okay. Anyway, I had fun. I always have fun here. It goes really fast for me. If anybody needs, wants an evaluation to be considered for representation, joydisability.com, and click on the upper left-hand link that says free SSD evaluation. If what you need is a consultation on anything other than that, you want my time to question and answer or go over a topic with you or even your own situation, that's a prepaid consultation because I don't have any additional free spare time for pro bono stuff as a general rule. To be clear, we do a lot of pro bono, even with our clients, a lot of unpaid work. And then, of course, the video shares, which actually are a lot of fun. And it seemed to be the best way to get more bang for the buck with time in getting out tips and ideas and strategies and information when there's false stuff floating around, or certainly unconfirmed stuff. So anyway, I hope it's been helpful, and I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next week, I hope. Bye, guys. Ciao.